Hi, Heather.
Hi, Amy.
How are you? Where are you,
Sorry, I got
Heather?
disconnected. I'm on my phone. No.
Get off your phone.
Hello.
Don't be a 16-year-old.
Hi, I'm Heather, and we are the Experienced Empaths. Welcome to Ever So Clever Conversations with Amy and Heather. And we are guiding empaths through turbulent times so they can bloom.
Absolutely. And today's episode, which is episode or conversation number 3, is the importance of connection for the empath and intuitive, and let's face it, highly sensitive person. That's so important for all of us, I think.
Right. And for those of you on our Facebook that are live, if you would say hello, we'd love that. And then also, if you have questions or comments as we're talking, feel free to leave those and we'll respond as we can. And those that are watching the record or watching the replay, just leave comments too and we'll come back and check those. And I'm hoping, if you see me looking down, that's me looking at my phone. We have to check, so see who's being active in the Facebook group because we can't, or Facebook page, because we can't see it here on Zoom. So I'll be checking that every once in a while. And feel free to share if you think anyone would benefit from this video. And welcome to everyone.
Thanks, Heather. And if you're down, I'll help you out. Don't worry about that. You're looking down.
Yeah.
So, Heather, what's going on? I feel like we should shoot the shit before we get started here.
Well, right? So what is going on? Well, I was just talking to Amy. I had what do you call it, a cap?
Crown or cap?
Crown.
Yeah.
My crown fell out.
She's no longer a queen.
I am not. I lost my crown.
Oh, come on.
And when I went to the dentist yesterday, it really bothered me more than normal. All the drilling, all the sounds, and maybe it's with COVID too. There's the extra wash your hands, wear your mask. Everything was like, I just felt totally could feel my sensitivity in place at that time. And I get it. We all are going through life differently as a highly sensitive person or an empath. So even going to the dentist is a different experience for us because there's so many sounds and the taste and the, everyone around us and sticking their hands in their mouth. And, and after that stuff too, it's like, I need to take a rest. And I didn't cook dinner, we got dinner. It's like those things are just overwhelming to me. I'm not sure if others feel that same way, but for me, just that type of appointment can be overwhelming.
Yeah, definitely.
But I know you just returned from a bike ride.
I did. That's why I'm wet. I did, Heather. I was maybe the opposite. We were like opposite all the time.
We are a little, right?
I was super like trying to get so much done, and I built myself into kind of a frenzied lather. I was like, I've got to get a bike ride in, and then I thought, oh, it's the day to wash my hair. That sounds so 1970s, but just clean up and yeah, I feel like we've got a lot going on. My son, I just was downstairs grabbing something from the printer, and he said he passed his AP history test, and he got a 4. So it's a score out of a 1 to a 0, I guess, to a 5, and he got a 4. So that most colleges will take that as credit. So we were kind of down there doing a happy dance quick.
Right.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Day of abundance, I believe.
Yes. Good one.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. So, Heather, we're talking today really about the importance of connection for the empath, intuitive, and highly sensitive person, or HSP. Mm-hmm. And that's a really important thing, I think, is the personal connections. Actually, there is a lot of study around personal emotional connection and well-being, whether it's depression, anxiety, longevity, health, so on. There's so much correlation to solid emotional relationships. And so when we think about that in the full percentage of people on earth, but then we think of the empathics that are people who are more sensitive and need those maybe special relationships to really help them, whatever it is that they need. It could feel grounded or be vulnerable. I think that's a big one for me. Is I really appreciate relationships where I can have a good amount of vulnerability. Like there are no skeletons in my closet with those people. I feel like I can say anything because I think that's where I feel the most or the least fearful. I feel like there's nothing wrong here, that no matter what I say, it's going to be okay. And that makes me feel more secure. It sounds like I'm a baby. I feel more secure. But I know that's true. And I recognize that through going to conferences and so on. The times when there's a lot of vulnerability in the conference or in the event, retreat, so on, I have a blast. I'm like a completely different person because I feel so safe. I just let her loose.
Right.
How about for you, Heather?
Well, and I agree with that. And I feel like for me, I can get deep with people and close with people really quickly. But then you also, and I haven't had this happen, but I hear from others, they have to be careful too of who they are sharing information with or being vulnerable with, because it could be the wrong person as well. I think I can pretty much a good judge of character in finding the right people that I then know I can share those deep conversations and be vulnerable with. But we do need to be careful in some way, I feel like, on how much we share with who we share too.
I agree.
So don't get hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially, I also think that people that don't realize they're empathic can sometimes have the experience where you share something of vulnerability and then they kind of use that against you. Not that they're trying to manipulate or be mean, but they're actually trying to protect themselves and they don't recognize it. And I think that's really awkward. It's really uncomfortable. I know that's happened to me with people close to me in my life.
Right.
And surprisingly, and I think, geez, that's not enjoyable.
Yes. So that's for us, I think that's the space we want to be in. And so we have to be aware that not everyone is at that same space. Like they're not gonna maybe take it in a positive or a nice nurturing way. Some people might use it later on and spin it and right, you said they're not, it might not be on purpose. That's just they're not understanding us really.
Right.
I think we want the heart to heart kind of conversations and relationships.
Yeah. Or I think bring it up when it's not appropriate. I think that that's what's happened to me most. So I don't think it's intentional. I do think, and I'm sure that if you are empathic, intuitive, or highly sensitive, you're aware of this, but we prefer, and this is definitely a topic for another conversation about what is our Myers-Briggs or what is our personality type that defines that. But we definitely are people who like to have deeper conversation. It's not so fun to go and have surface conversations about the weather or,
Right.
those things for people who are empathic. They like to go further, especially the highly sensitive. If you fall more into that category, I think that's true.
Yeah. Yep. So all of our relationships, all of our connections, we have, connections with friends, family, children, relationships. I think they're all a little bit different in being that we are highly sensitive, empathic, or intuitive. And we are what, 20%?
Right. I don't know. Where it comes to empaths, I don't know what I think that we can loop it in with highly sensitives, but right, it's hard to say.
Yeah. When I had a quote from Judith Orloff, she's more on the empath side, and she has a book out, and she wrote this is her quote, "The struggle I face as an empath in intimate relationship is that my strong desire for love and connection conflicts with my deep desire to be alone."
And you brought up a good point there. I think that is really poignant. Thank you, Judith and Heather. But also I think that, one of the things that sticks out to me in what we talked about before this is children. If you're the parent and you're an empath or highly sensitive, particularly highly sensitive, but all of those would fall true to some degree. Even Elaine Aron says, if you can afford to either save for college or pay for time to be away from your children as a highly sensitive, it's better to pay for time away from your children because of that exact reason, that it is really a conflict inside of us. And I know when my kids were little, I was very conflicted and I stayed at home with them, which is great. And I did work outside of the home part-time. So I had some time away at some junctures in their childhood, but that was too stimulating. So it wasn't what I actually needed. I needed to sit quietly, and I felt guilty about that. And it felt shameful because I can earn, I can produce. And so there is that wrestle inside, but definitely claiming that and learning a process. I do remember one of the first Mother's Days that I had, I did not go to the family event. And my sister-in-laws, who must have had kids at the time too, were like, oh, it's okay that you did that. And I think they were sort of saying, forge the path they needed to, and they couldn't claim that. Or they wanted both, I think, of course, because it was their family we were going to see. But it's conflicting to decide. Yeah.
When I see moms often posting that are, you know, in our arena here, that how do I take time for myself, especially when the kids are younger?
Yeah.
I need 5 minutes. What do I do? I saw a post recently about that. Like a mom was like, I need like 10 minutes alone. And you know, when you have younger kids, that is a challenge. And I did too. I got to the point when my daughter was about a year and a half, I said to my husband, I need to get a job. Like I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom my whole life. But once I was, it was really emotionally hard for me, like just being with her constantly. So when she was about a year and a half and I felt like she had some, you know, stability and knew I was her mom and that kind of feeling, I got a part-time job as well, just because I needed something of my own. But I still then had a lot of time with her as well. And, you know, we have to, I guess, do what feels best for us as well in that area. But those relationships and connections is a challenge for us, and finding a, you know, a spouse or significant other that um, understands us, you know, is important too, and that can be hard, and there's so much to this.
Right. I think that's a massive, you know, if you're not with a partner who's supportive and understands, you know, to reevaluate that too, because it's, I think, really essential that you have somebody who can have your back and really understand it's okay. You don't go to this event. They don't have any hard feelings, or they can, you know, maybe sometimes watch out for you. But I think that's our journey and our job, to watch out for ourselves. I was just actually interviewed on a podcast yesterday about parenting, and the gal kind of reminded me, we had something that we did called bedroom time. So at night at like 7 p.m. or 7:30, depending on how old the kids were, maybe 8, we'd read to the kids and then put them in their rooms, and they had quiet time where they had to, you know, keep it quiet, but they could read, they could play a game, they could look at whatever, toys, and then turn their light off a half an hour. So we taught them how to kind of tell time, basic time, to be able to do that. And it was very successful. And then it gave us time to clean up the house, get things together, make sure we had ordered this or gone to the store for that. You know, it really gave us some freedom. And this mom mentioned she does that in the afternoon with her kids because she's home with them. And when the little one naps, the older ones go into their room and have quiet time. And I think that's super essential. I think also meditating with kids when they're little and teaching them, even if they run around the room, you keep meditating, because as they get older, they're going to see that model and take action on that too. And they might need it if they're sensitive. You might be teaching them something really valuable.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
So finding those friendships that are more than surface level, and really digging in, and making sure that you surround yourself. If you aren't, I see this a lot with intuition, and I work as an intuitive, so that people will have friends that come around and we're friends for a long time or a short time, and then they kind of know that it's time to let them go, and they have, you know, they're making room for new friends to come in. But I think for the people who are empathic or sensitive, it's really important to be aware that that's a natural process. It's sort of like the sloughing of skin, or in this lifetime, especially because of how we're changing so rapidly, particularly since like 1986, and it'll continue here, but just allowing that shift to happen and making sure you're asking yourself and taking that ownership of, am I around the right people? How can I let this go or set this boundary so that I can attract people who are even more aligned with who I am, and be more honest about who I am as a person? Because that's tricky sometimes, especially if you're in a relationship and you have children, or you're active, you know, you work full time. Your life can sometimes not feel totally like your own, particularly if you're empathic, because you're moving at such a pace. Like you said, even going to the dentist is kind of overwhelming. You know what I tell them to do when I go to the dentist and I'm nervous? I have them put that lead thing on me.
Oh, almost like because it's like a lead blanket almost, huh?
Yes, and yeah. That was years before those lead blankets were around, or I knew about thunder church.
heart, right? You knew
Yep.
what you needed. Yeah.
I had one on me for a good chunk of time once waiting, and that really helps. So, yeah, I think that just using those angles to your advantage of what can help me now.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the friendship thing too, because that has happened to me. Like, I knew when I had to release some friends, and it was hard. And it's almost like a grief, like you're grieving too what that relationship was. But I want people here to know that that is normal, especially like you said for us, um, that we're elevating you know, in our life, elevating in who we are. And so we're gonna open that space for new people to come. So never feel guilty for that. Um, the right people then will come into your life. So I know there was some relationships that were hard for me. One especially that was from like high school and college, and it was just not good anymore. And I just couldn't be in that space with her anymore. And it was kind of like a grieving process. And we have like no connection anymore. But I still respect and love the time we did have together. But you know, it just wasn't serving me anymore. And I don't know if it was her as well. But and that's just normal life, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Heather. It's such hard work to do. How I think of it, so I can really detach myself from it, is I always think, you never know. We've grown apart somehow, and I'm letting that go. But you never know. Like if I grow over here, and they grow over there, and they grow over, maybe at one point we'll come back together, and it will harmonize again, and we can be friends again. I mean, because I always think like you never know what will happen, and if we're supposed to be, it will be, and then I can kind of let go because it's really hard for me
That is so true.
do what you
Yeah,
did. Yeah.
yeah.
Great.
It could come back, and
Yeah,
then it'll be the right time. Yeah, for
absolutely.
sure.
You guys, I think we're finished here for our short bit of share. I hope that this has supported you today, learning really about the importance of relationships for empaths, highly sensitives, and intuitives, and the, making sure that those are healthy relationships for you and holding the boundaries and so on.
Mhm.
As Heather and I have talked about before, we have a deeper conversation that we do after this. So we hope that you'll peek into how you can access those. We'll be sharing that in an episode that's coming soon.
Yes, hopefully next week we'll share more about how you can access those deeper conversations and how you can, you know, work more with us, hopefully, and we can support you in different ways.
Yeah.
But for now, we thank you for joining us for our conversation number 3. And like Amy mentioned, next week we're going to be going live here on Tuesday Central Time instead of Wednesday, those of you that join us live. And we're going to talk about our empathy and being empathic, the same thing, and 2 perspectives on that topic. So we would love to have you back. Again, if you have comments after you watch this video or questions, we would love to have you leave them in the comments and we'll respond when we can. Otherwise, we thank you for joining us and we hope to see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Okay, Heather. Great. We're on to the next part, you guys. Welcome. Welcome again.
Oh, yes. Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
This is just a deeper portion of the conversation we've already started about really the importance of relationships and connection for the empath, intuitive, and highly sensitive person. And finding those friendships, where I think that's something I want to dive into in this deeper conversation is where do we find sources for people to connect to, and I think where I'll start is I think online is a great place. There's something called the Highly Sensitive Refuge, which they have articles that are written by highly sensitive people and they're curated by highly sensitive people, and it's just the whole platform as a circle is powerful. But I do think you can find definite communities. Heather has a community where it's for moms who are empathic, or women I think in general could be fine there too, to
Right.
seek solace and have open dialogue, and that what we talked about earlier in this episode is having that vulnerability, that it's a space to do that. So I think that that's definitely a nice way to share. I mean, I know somebody on there had a question about something kind of, I'm just going to generalize so that I'm not outing them, but
Yeah, great.
about, I'm empathic and how do I deal with helping my kids while I'm going through a divorce, which probably is amplified because they are empathic. I mean, there's a lot to that. So then really figuring out, how do you do those things? And if other people are going through similar things or different things, you can kind of get a leg up on understanding how they dealt with it and what worked for them. Because it's that's the beauty of today, is we have access to all knowledge so much. And yet I think it's a tad bit overwhelming to exactly the part of us that is so unique, is this empathicness, the feeling of others.
Yeah, and with technology, you can then be in these groups, or you can listen to conversations, or you can join other conversations via Zoom. So I think it's amazing time now, right now, to do that. I know for some people that are sensitive, in-person connections can be challenging because they want to make sure they have the right people in that space. So it can take a little longer maybe to be vulnerable and share. And so sometimes it's easier to do it right, you know, on like in a Facebook group where you don't really know the people that well, and um and you maybe don't feel as judged. I don't know. Sometimes it takes me a little longer in person to get to know people too.
Right.
And
Even
I feel like you could still read people's energy even on like a text or an email or in groups.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, even in back in the day when I had my kids, there were something called listservs where you'd post, and it was kind of like the idea of Facebook, but it was really like primitive. But you could get support as a pregnant mom, and it was super helpful. People would post things about all sorts of, unique issues and emotional things, and it was such an incredibly supportive place. So I think finding that place where you fit and seeing, what opportunity is there for you is a nice place to start. I also think attending classes and workshops and so on, where you can get to know people, even if it's online right now, because of the circumstance in our world,
Yeah.
it's a nice way to get to know other people and have the opportunity to connect with other people who are empathic or sensitive. So you can kind of confer with them or see, people who are similar. Then go find them on Facebook or a social media platform and say, hey, can we connect? And
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Because you're not alone for sure. And I know that's a feeling that a lot of us have in the beginning. And when we're trying to understand this trait, the feeling of loneliness, that maybe we're different, or we don't fit into groups of people. So that loneliness can be challenging and maybe not want you to step into spaces. But if you could find one that is created for highly sensitive person or empath, you already know that those people are your people and will understand.
right. Yeah, I've had a lot of loneliness in my life. And what I spent a lot of my childhood alone, which was actually okay with me, right? Because I am so sensitive that it was kind of nice to be alone, not with so much with other kids and so on. But I think that one of the things that creates loneliness for me is the lack of curiosity and the lack of slowing down. If I'm engaging too much, I mean, that's part of why in the earlier conversation, I took a bike ride, because I was like, I need to break the energy of where I am and shift it so that I'm not getting into this space of either mindset, or it could be like actual action that I'm taking that's maybe misaligned, but I'm doing it because I'm feeling like, I don't know what, maybe this is right, but being more thoughtful about that. And I think that the best thing is being very nurturing for oneself in the relationship with yourself, is also going to attract people who are very nurturing and kind and gentle, like the dentist who comes in, instead of just sticking their hands, they're like, hey, this is what we're going to do next, and they do it, and this is what we're going to do next. I think for people who are empathic, that's easier versus, well, an anxiety for sure, knowing what to anticipate or knowing what to expect
Right.
helps. And I think a lot of care professionals have been taught this, I mean, I think that that's helpful too, that out in our world there is some of that. But
Yeah.
don't be afraid to ask or say it, hey, that doesn't work for me, this is better, because then you're teaching them. If somebody else says it 2 or 3 times, they're going to start to change it and actually do it for everybody. And as we know, what's good for the highly sensitive is good for everybody.
Right.
I'd
Right.
say, I'm like, we're the most uptight. Whoops.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
way to say it, but
Well, and even before our conversation, I was thinking about my relationships throughout my life. And so I thought it was interesting because from childhood even. So I had so many different, and this is normal life. So I don't think it's just specific to me or being sensitive. Maybe it is. I'm not sure. but like, okay, I'd have this little group of friends, and then I don't know if I don't think you outgrow them at that age, but maybe you do. Then I would switch to a new group of friends. I was the kind of the kid that was friends with everyone into like my teenage year, in probably all my life. I feel like that's a pattern. But I would switch friendships, and I don't know if I'm searching for something specific or it just didn't feel good at that time. Then I would leave. I had like my neighborhood friends, and then I had my friends at school, and that's probably normal life as well. But I think when you're sensitive and you don't know if something didn't feel right with somebody, I would be gone on to the next. And already at that time, I knew that, but I didn't understand what it was.
Heather, I think that's exactly, you just hit the nail on the head, but that's what I'm hearing is your knowing knew to
Yeah,
keep you in or out. And
yeah,
I always regard people who can be friends with everybody. I think that that's a really beautiful strength. Like if you walk into a lunchroom in high school, you could sit down anywhere. I think
yeah,
that's really an
yeah.
incredible gift. I mean, I've said, boy, that's what I would want in children, because I
Right?
think it's so freeing to be able to be anywhere and be comfortable with yourself. Yeah.
When I always felt bad for the kids that didn't have many friends or were sitting alone. And I think we're so aware of that. So if we walked into a room, I would be aware and I'd tune into that person.
Really? So that bothered you
Yeah.
because
Oh, it bothered me.
I mean, I think of myself and I think of one of my kids, and we would rather maybe be alone
Oh,
than just be comfortable sitting with somebody unless there's going to be a connection. So we're actually, we would prefer that.
see, and I wouldn't have known that. I probably would have came up to you.
Well, and I probably, I mean, I don't know about the child I have, but I would invite you in because I'm maybe more socially, I have more social needs perhaps. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
But see,
And
I would see that and feel like, oh no, I feel bad for them that they're alone. I'm going to go initiate something.
sure. Which for a lot of people, I think that can create comfort. I think in most circumstances, it would create comfort for me. For my kid, though, I actually, it's a question I think I need to ask them is,
Yeah. Because now I wonder that.
I know what I wonder is if it's about distraction, because we've recognized that kid's brain has some short-term memory processing. So it's like, that's tricky. So it's like if there are 5 steps, if somebody's trying to talk to them and they're
Yeah.
trying to take steps down, they might actually feel angry inside or feel like
Yes.
be quiet. And maybe that frees them from having to even deal with that, which kind of is avoidant behavior. Okay, I see it. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that'll be a curious dinner conversation.
There you go.
Thank
Right.
you, Heather.
Well, and that brings me to, and I think I've said this to you, Amy, that my son will be starting a new school in ninth grade. And he's already told me, Mom, I probably won't make friends for the first few months. And that's okay. Because he's worried that I would be sad for him, oh, you don't have friends. But he knows that it takes him a while to make friends. So he doesn't have an expectation of going into a new school and right away I'm going to have friends. And he said, I got to observe people too, and then I'll know who I want to be friends with.
Yeah,
So this is a 14-year-old boy already telling me this before he's starting the new school.
right.
He's already got the plan.
Right, but that's incredible. I mean, that's exactly what kids ought to be doing is kind of, stating, I know who I am is what he's saying, and this is how it's gonna, how it can work for me.
Right. And that he's okay with it. So I should be, because I think he's worried that I would be like, oh, you have no friends, and I would feel bad. But he's like, it's okay that I don't. So don't be worried.
Well, and now we're in the rabbit hole. I mean, that takes me to a whole different level of our society says that it's wrong to sit by yourself for lunch. Our society says that that's a lonely person. Our society says that that's awkward and uncomfortable. And I think about it in middle school, I had changed schools, so I didn't know any of the kids. And I did feel awkward. And I think I showed that awkwardness in middle school. I think in high school, I extended myself further to branch out more and know more people. So I feel like then it changed for me a bit. But was that me wanting that, or did I do that as a way to, I mean, I do think it was me wanting it, but what is that about? Isn't it okay to just sit? Even I said to my kids in their high school lunchroom, I said, wouldn't it be nice? They have this one area that's just kind of a lower ceiling, and then the other area has like a double story ceiling, and it's very bright. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if the lower ceiling area they actually made into a lounge for the kids? So they could sit on couches, or they could take a little nap, or they could sit by themselves or with 5 other kids and either have a conversation or by themselves and be comfortable. So it would be conducive for doing homework with like a flip up table, or just lounging around, and maybe watching a movie. I mean, that's not a luxury we had when I was a kid in high school, but kids literally can do that. So, and it makes it more casual for kids maybe to get to know each other, and also sit independent from others, because maybe some kids need that. I didn't really know why they didn't do that.
That is such a good point. So for me, being an observer of a situation, I would feel, because, society, like you're saying, is saying loneliness or being alone is looked upon as maybe bad or not right. So I would see it be like, I need to fix that, sit that for that person.
Right.
And maybe they were just fine. They wanted to be alone.
Well, and Heather, absolutely. And I think the powerful way to say it is they want to be alone.
They want to,
right, versus they are alone or they're lonely. Because you don't actually know. And some kids may not have the, for a whole host of reasons.
Yeah.
But I think that giving kids that option of, even at big workplaces, they have those like pods where you can sit and you can cover yourself so you can be completely isolated. And I think for empathic people, it's a must. I think I've shared on one of the conversations, when I travel and speak or teach, or I'm out, doing breakout session or something, that night I have to stay in a room by myself or with like somebody else I know I can handle, which is kind of awkward because I've tried it and I cannot, I can't sleep next to somebody because it's cheap. If they're intense, I'm like all night, I just can't sleep. I really need that space to decompress and let go.
Mm-hmm. So maybe loneliness, when we talk about that, is not all bad, right?
Right, but recognizing I need alone time. And I think it's a double-edged sword, right? Like in a high school setting, it looks awkward to get alone time for a different reason, for social pressures and peer pressures. But then when we're a parent with young children, it's also awkward to be like, I need time away. Well, why do you need to be away from us? It seems full or strange. And I think for a lot of moms, it's kind of a heavy burden to be, it's what I need. Some don't. Some are like, it's what I need, get away.
Well, even me still, and my kids are older, even if I go away for like a night, I went away and I still had a little bit of guilt. And I'm like, they could totally function on their own. They could even not even have their dad home. Like they're old enough to take care of themselves.
Well, and
that guilt.
Yeah. Here's the other side of it. My daughter is leaving town for 7 days. And I said to my husband, you've been wanting to go to the North Shore, or not the North Shore, to the Boundary Waters to backpack with our son or both the kids. And now is your time. Go do it while the other kid is gone so that I can have the house to myself. And they're doing it. And I thought that's another restorative piece for me, is to be home alone for a while. But then I told my son, who's going with my husband, great, this will be really fun. If you guys hit rainstorms, you're going to stay in a hotel up there. It's like not mincing words. And my son said, then when we get home, you and dad are going to go away. So I can be home. I was like, wow. I think it's in all of us to have that solitude. And he just got his license. He's got a lot of access to his world that he hasn't had. But I don't think he's thinking of that, but he really can do everything he needs to do, while we're gone. So.
So Luca just yesterday, he said, I've been bored lately and I'm trying to figure out something to do. And I was listing things and he's like, well, one thing I could do is just go sit in the chair alone and quiet. And I was like, you can. Like, that wasn't anything I listed. Like, I'm trying to think of things to keep him busy, like do a puzzle, call a friend, all these other things. And he's like, I could just sit in a chair in silence.
You're like, you sure can.
Well, that is an option. I was like, that is not something I thought of. But yes, go for that.
Yeah. That's rare though. I think, again, he knows himself, because most kids would be like, I've got to be doing, not just being. And I think it's good, especially for boys, to be in touch with that being.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
We all need that. We need a club over our head. Just be, don't do. It's like, geez.
Totally.
It's a hard one to break. Hmm.
It is a hard one. Yeah. Even, yeah. Amy, you brought on some different perspectives for me that I appreciate.
Yeah,
So
good.
thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. And thanks for your perspective. It's very helpful
Yeah.
to apply it to life. We're living life, moving along the train tracks, and it's like, to stop and actually have some thought about how does this impact us. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Good stuff. Cool. Anything else, Heather? Or you feel sated?
I I think I feel good. Do you have anything else?
No, I
Friends,
think we covered it.
family, others,
Yeah.
children. I
No,
think we kind of touched base on all those areas.
yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Not on the partners. No, just
I
kidding.
know. Maybe that's a whole nother topic.
You know what though? I will say something with COVID, and we both have worked from home for a long time, but the kids are home all the time. One of the things that I've done is said to myself, sort of, how am I inspired to do the thing that's truly what I need to do versus focusing on the family? Because that's a definite like kickstand fall down bicycle situation for me, and that's helped, as well as thinking about meetings in the evening and so on. But at night, actually having some thought time before the workday ends as to what would I like to continue to work so that I can get some things done that I want to, or would I like to watch a movie by myself and knit, or would I like to do this? And I actually entertain what I want to do, and do I need to do it by myself? And it has been groundbreaking. It's really helpful. And my husband, luckily, he's very self-sufficient. I mean, just last Friday, you were coming over to my house, Heather, and I kind of sprung on him in the last minute. And he's like, I'll connect with my friends and go golfing. And they did, so I think that that's also gives me some freedom. He games a lot with his friends, actually in person, but because of COVID, they're doing it online. And so every night that, like last week, every single night I had something, and he definitely found things to do. So I think that's important too, on the other side of the spectrum of having your partner be able to fill their time in the way that they want. And
Yeah.
I think it's also an important model for our partners in a way. I did this detox a few weeks ago, and then my husband was saying like, I wonder if I should do, and it was like over a specific organ in my body, but he's like, I wonder if I should, like, how could I look into that? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just going to let him figure that out if
Yeah.
he wants to do it. That I think when we model things, sometimes they also,
Oh, for sure.
yeah, I
Yeah.
want to be doing it too.
Yes. Because well, even my husband's parenting has changed following kind of my lead from the beginning. It was different, and now it's changed.
Yeah.
For the better. I mean, not that we were bad parents, but we didn't know how to parent a sensitive child in the beginning. And once I started to shift how we were doing it, he came along and followed, not knowing. I didn't really have to necessarily say specifics. He just felt it, the shift too. So I like how you're saying that. Just so it wasn't like me saying you're doing it wrong or let's do it this way. It was him kind of following my lead. Mm-hmm. In that way. And our relationship too, we don't do a whole lot together, and I don't need someone to be around me all the time. Like that sounds uncomfortable to me. So I think it's like I don't need to constantly be with my partner. Mm-hmm. So I think it's good that we have a lot of things we do separate, but then when we are together or we're together as a family, it just feels special.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And that works for us. So I know everyone has a difference, what works for them. So.
Yeah, I guess that's one more thing that I'll say. I don't think I have anything else, but that in partnerships, if you want to change a behavior, you change it and they will change. I think that the energy is ripe for that in this time, is that especially if you're a woman, if you lead or you're a sensitive man, I think if you lead in the relationship, the other will kind of come your direction, because I think that they want to, and I think we want to, like, eat better, do all the things we know, exercise, but that's a massive piece about it, is just do it and lead it, and then they'll come along.
Right. Yes. And our children, I think too.
Well, right. I always say to my husband, it doesn't matter if our kids don't do what we do or do what we say. We are modeling all of the things that we desire and prefer. We whatever, eat well, exercise, or do, yeah, have
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. This was a great conversation again.
Thanks so much. I really enjoyed it.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
We look forward to next time.
Sounds good. Looking
All right.
forward to it.
Everyone.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Bye.